Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Reprieve Media CIC's coverage of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. Well, we've got there, everybody, the final day of the festival, the fourth of four, and what a magnificent week of racing it has been so far. We've done it again. Double Handful has managed to get to the end of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. My co-host Steve Allpress and myself have never, I don't think, missed a day of a single festival since Reprieve Media CIC was incorporated. Massive thanks to my co-host Steve Allpress for always finding the time, no matter whatever his situation is, to do something for us at Reprieve Media CIC. He's actually been on course for half the festival this week, the first 2 days, but he was back home to record his segments for the fourth day. So I will hand over to Steve Allpress for the first preview of the day, and where better place to start than the first race of the day, the Triumph Hurdle for 4-year-olds. So Steve, it's over to you.
Hi Paul, glad to be back for the final day of the Cheltenham Festival preview. As always, it's been a brilliant week. There's been some tremendous races, some brilliant horses. There's been a lot of drama. The results have been a little bit up and down throughout the week. We've had quite a few of the hot pots beaten, but all in all, it's still been a tremendous week. There's been some lovely stories and some top quality horses and some for the future that I'm sure we'll be looking at next year. But yeah, let's hope we can have a great final day, pick some winners, and then we're going to have to wait for another year, and then we'll be back next year for another great festival, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you very much for having me this week, and I look forward to today's racing. Right then, let's go on to the opening race on day 4, which is the JCB Triumph Hurdle, a grade 1 over 2 miles for 4-year-olds. My selection in the race is the Nicky Henderson trained, ridden by Nico de Boinville, Lulumba. Lulumba's a nice horse that's come over from France. It's had one run to date over hurdles in the UK, where it beat a horse called Mondo Man at Ascot, giving it £10. I know going into that race that day, there was a lot of talk around that Lulumba had a lot of ability, and I know vibes were pretty strong leading up to Ascot, and I know there was a lot of talk around that he could be a Triumph Hurdle horse. On the day, he was quite weak in the market. I think it was because there was a lot of talk with regards to his rival on that occasion, Mondo Man, and obviously he was getting a lot of weight. So I think Lulumba on that occasion was easy to back. However, it didn't diminish the regard they held him in, and they still felt that they were going there with a smart horse. So as the race panned out, Lulumba won the race very impressively, obviously giving all that weight away. And the interesting thing about it was, after the race, when Connections were interviewed, it was fairly clear that the horse was only just ready to start, and they hadn't really pressed any buttons with him at home. And I just think when you take everything into consideration of like the way he was giving away the first run, the opposition against him, strong in the market, etc., I think Lulumba's run has to be taken massively. Obviously, I get the impression that they always felt there was going to be a lot to work on from that race, and the vibes that I've been getting since then is that the horse is flying and he's come on leaps and bounds. Another thing that I like about Lulumba was when you get these young horses, or any novice hurdler really, they tend to be very keen early on, but Lulumba seemed a horse very professional, very relaxed, wasn't pulling. He jumped beautifully, and for an inexperienced horse, I was very impressed with everything he did. He really went through the race like a true professional, and although he's only had one start in the UK over timber, inexperience wouldn't necessarily be a negative for me for this horse. I feel like it's obvious that he's going to improve with experience, but I haven't seen no bad traits in him to suggest that he's going to fluff his lines in this race. So yeah, I really like Lalumba, and he'll be my strong selection. Of the others, there's some good horses in here against him. So obviously Lalumba's going to have to step up, which I think he will. But of the others, East India Dock for James Owen. He'll be ridden by Sam Twiston Davis. He's had 3 starts this season. Very impressive each time. It's been to the track multiple times. He's been winning by fairly big distances. And he's going there, with a fair chance himself. I know connections think he could be a champion hurdle contender in the future. So obviously, they obviously have, they've got big expectations of him, and it'll be very interesting to see how he gets on here. And of the others, you have to look at the Irish horses that raced at DRF. On that occasion, St. Lucy for Willie Mullins went off favourite and that looked very good on its seasonal debut. However, she ran badly on the day, and Hello Neighbour, who also is highly touted for Gavin Cromwell, he was the one to take advantage on that occasion. And he's a horse that travels beautifully throughout the race, jumps very nicely, very nice laid back horse, uncomplicated. Doesn't always finish his races off strongly, but he's one of those horses that might really benefit from a fast pace, and you know that horse is going to come there travelling at some stage. So yeah, it's an interesting race. You've got other horses in there. I've obviously mentioned Mondo Man, who ran at Ascot. He then went to Kempton a couple of weeks ago. The horse has been too keen. He's been pulling so hard, and he's just he's ruining his races before they get into the business end of the race. And any of those antics again, his chances will be gone early on. But he's a horse, if he did settle, it'd be very interesting at a big price. But yeah, I've gone through 3 or 4 horses there for you. But Lalumba, I've been so impressed. I like what connections are saying. It's he's going to be a chaser next season, but as far as I'm aware, they've got a lot of expectation that this horse is going to be very difficult to beat. So yeah, Lalumba for Nicky Henderson is my selection in the JCB Triumph Hurdle.
Thank you very much, Steve, for a very good preview of the opening race on day 4, the 2025 Triumph Hurdle. I mean, I tend to agree with you. This could be, to me, one of the races of the week. We've got the Nicky Henderson has been trying to raid the French reservoirs again. It worked beautifully for him, for Sergino, winner of the Pre-Wild Monarch, who actually runs in same colours as this horse here, Lalumba. 1 run, 1 win in the UK, faultless, really, hurdle debut. But like Steve said, the form was what it was. Mondo Man is not doing himself any favours in any races, and he lines up today as well. And in the same race, St Pancras was in there, I looked at, who's out of a Cheveley Park mare, I remember. But yeah, he managed to come out and win a listed race after being well beaten at Newbury. But really, it's the French Derby horse, Mondo Man, that is making this form quite hard to weigh up, I would say. The form of Lalumba's maiden victory. I've actually got one in this race. I've actually identified one in this race, and that will be the one that I will be focusing all my energy on for the Triumph Hurdle, and that is the Gavin Cromwell trained Hello Neighbour. I think he's the only Grade 1 winning hurdler in the field after his win at the Dublin Racing Festival. So he brings a very high level of form to the table, I think, in comparison to some of these. But what's more interesting about Hello Neighbour, really, what I found, was the pedigree of the horse. Just how superbly bred the horse is. Hello Neighbour. I mean, I'm not going to bang on too much about the videos, the pedigree. In this video, the horse has been on the Patreon channel for some while now, and people have been free to go and take a look at the pedigree of the horse, Hello Neighbour, at their own convenience. So if they haven't, then it's on them. You know, I'm not going to really repeat myself. But so this is a A very interesting horse, Hello Neighbour. I was absolutely delighted when it won at the Dublin Racing Festival. All the hype was about the Mullins horse on the day, St Lucy, and that turns up as well. He's also got another one, Willie de Huel, who is actually out of the sire I identified, Boumek de Huel, who was going round in French juvenile hurdles. You know, it'd be nice to see that bounce back to a certain extent because that is a stallion I am looking forward to, and that one in England has been fairly disappointing, I think. It's fair to say. But to me, this race is all about Hello Neighbour. I just cannot wait to see what this horse is going to do. It's been a barren spell, really, for me, for the 3-year-old hurdlers. I haven't really done very much in the last 2 years with them. So as a consequence, Hello Neighbour is actually the only 3-year-old hurdler I'm following this year. You know, I'm on safe ground. I identified him when he won first time out, and then I was delighted to see him oblige in what is always a very informative race for this Triumph Hurdle, the race at the Dublin Racing Festival. You know, I think it produces a few winners of the Triumph Hurdle, and I'm just hoping that the Gavin Cromwell trained Hello Neighbour will be up to the task. You know, it's a beautifully bred horse, and it's just exactly my sort of horse. I think there's enough case for saying it could be running in the Derby rather than the Triumph Hurdle. The horse has actually ran on the flat a couple of times, and I think the horse is actually unbeaten on the flat. So I don't know whether this will be an out-and-out national hunt horse, Hello Neighbour. A bit like the one that he ran today, 6.5. That's been running on the flat and campaigned over hurdles a little bit as well. Just touched off today. 6.5 was in the Grade 2 Mares Novice Hurdle. But tomorrow, I'm just hoping that Hello Neighbour can go one better. I think they might hear me cheer at Cheltenham from here in Peterborough if Hello Neighbour can oblige in the first race. Unfortunately, it's a handicap day for me as well. Tomorrow I've got to touch on a little bit of handicap business in the next race then, the 2 o'clock at Cheltenham, the county hurdle. I've actually got one turned up in that, Nadawi, my old mate off the flat. Nadawi, I followed him on as a classic watch possible in my personal flat project, Nadawi. I don't think he's run much this year. He ran in the Cesarovic towards the end of last flat season, I think, or the season before even. But yeah, he's been kept off the track quite a lot, but he has turned up today in the county hurdle for trainer Gordon Elliott. It's actually from the family of Pinatubo, Nadawi. He ran quite well at the festival last year. I can't remember in the Fred Winter, the Boodles juvenile hurdle. I think he secured a placed effort in that race. So to me, off a break, Nadawi's hopefully been freshened up for the race, and it will be interesting to see how he runs. But like I said, these Cheltenham handicaps, they are absolutely brutal. People pay their money and take the chance, and if I follow horses, I would never dismiss a horse for no reason, and the Derby, through not really running, has managed to stay on my possibles list, one of my failed 3-year-old hurdlers from last year. So it will be interesting to see how Nadawi goes in the county hurdle at 2 o'clock, I think. Right, Steve hasn't got anything for any of the handicaps today on day 4. He's sticking to the top quality racing, and who can blame him? And speaking of top quality racing, it's handing over to Steve now, who is going to preview the second race of the day. The third race of the day, actually, sorry, which is the second race he's gotten interested in, and that is the Mares Chase. Run at the new time of 2:40, the Grade 2 Mares Chase, registered as the Libertine Mares Chase. So, Steve, it's over to you for your views on this race.
Right then, on to the Mares Chase. This race is usually ran towards the end of the day on day 4, but now it's been switched to before the Gold Cup. Obviously, there's been a bit of reformatting for several of the races at the festival, and this is one of them that's impacted. So we'll start with the Mares Chase. I'm going to start with the favourite, Dino Blue. This is a horse from the Willie Mullins stable for JP McManus. It's been a solid horse over the last several years. It's won its fair share of races. It's also been placed quite a few times. I think early on in its career, the trip of the Mares Chase would be a problem for this horse over 2.5 miles, because I felt Dino Blue was always more like a out and out 2-miler. But more recently, I think as the horse has strengthened up, it's been able to see out the trip a little bit better. So for that reason, and with the nice ground, I think Dino Blue has to be a big player last year. Obviously, it was beaten last year. It ran on, but it couldn't quite get there. Maybe the soft ground and stamina, the soft ground and combination of stamina just stretched it a little bit. But I think this year it goes there in probably a little bit better form than last year. And it's strengthened up. And with the ground being nice too, I think Dino Blue's a worthy favourite in here. I'll mention Allegory Devassi, horse that's been runner-up to in a previous years, 2 years ago, to Impervious. Allegory Devassi's not quite hit the heights of which some were hoping. She's still a fair horse herself. She's won a fair share of races, but she's also had a fair share of disappointments too. She obviously raced Dino Blue last time out, and there wasn't much between them. And I do have a kind of feeling that it's going to be pretty similar again. I think, I think those two are going to be certainly at the business end of the race together, and it's what Allegory with Devassi what is she going to show when push comes to shove. Sometimes she's been a little bit tame at the finish, but she goes there in fair form, and you couldn't rule her out for sure. I wouldn't say there's no standout mare in this race, so maybe even a few of them a bit lower in the market, like Bride's Hill. They go there with some kind of chance as well. But yeah, for me, the Mare's Chase is Dino Blues to lose in some ways. I just feel that everything's in the horse's favour now, and this is the one to concentrate on. So yeah, Dino Blue would be my selection for the Mare's Chase. Wouldn't be massively confident, but just on what I've seen of late, I think everything's going for her right now, and I feel she's the one to beat for sure.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress there for his preview of the Mare's Chase on day 4 of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. He never lets us down, Reprieve Media CIC. Every day since Reprieve Media CIC has been formed, he has found the time to do us something. He hasn't missed a day. And I think this might be the 7th consecutive festival. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to Steve for finding the time to put these together, not just this year in 2025, but every year in the past as well. It's always very much appreciated. This is a man that people need to listen to. He's very, very shrewd when it comes to horses. So the Mare's Chase for me is all about one horse, really, again. My mares really have been totally a bit of a letdown this year. I had horses like Fun, which I was hoping to see in races like this, even horses like Birdie or Bust that was placed in last year's mare's hurdle. I was hoping could step up, but some of the mares, rather like the mare's novice hurdle that we had yesterday, my mares have not really fired this year for one reason or another, unfortunately. But my old mate, Allegory Devassi, is coming back for another go at the Mare's Chase. So obviously, I will be siding with her on the day. Unlike last year, a few years, because she's running this race quite solidly a few times, a couple of placed efforts, I think. The weights might favour her this year. She's actually getting weight off Dino Blue as a consequence of Dino Blue just beating her in a race last year where they cooled down and sprinted at the end. I'll be surprised if they do that tomorrow. And I do think Allegory Devassi at the weights is interesting, I think. I think Steve's a bit unfair on the horse, saying she doesn't give it all in the end. She's just, if people look at the pedigree of the horse Allegory Devassi, they'll see that she's just not a National Hunt bred horse. Obviously, National bred horses will have more National Hunt qualities, but other horses that aren't National Hunt bred, they might be flat bred, will have more flat-based attributes like speed, and they might travel a bit better. The second dam, Reprieve of Allegory Devassi, is also the dam of Lawrence, the multiple Group 1 winner on the flat. People should never forget that. Allegory Devassi, it could be argued, has had a good career. One thing I will say is they seem to be learning about her and not running her as much in the season. If people look at her form over the last couple of seasons, they'll see that she's mixed the odd good run with the odd inconsistent run. This year, I don't really think there's been as many signs of that. I think she's been a lot more solid this year, and I do think that is down to connections just giving her a better break in between races. So hopefully in this mare's chase, Elegary Devassi can do herself justice. I think I don't think many people could begrudge her a victory in it, really. She's been a good, solid mare for the last 3 or 4 years, and hopefully she runs well. Right, before I touch on the Albert Bartlett Novice Hurdle, the race at 3:20, I'm going to hand back over to Steve Allpress, who is going to preview the last Novice Hurdle of the week, the 3-mile Grade 1 Novice Hurdle, the Albert Bartlett. So, Steve, it's over to you.
Right then, on to that Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, a Grade 1 over 3 miles. Just historically, I've not had the best of luck in this race down the years. So obviously I'm hoping the fortune will change this year. Usually I'm one for backing these lightly raced horses in this race. These lightly raced ones with a touch of class, with a blend of speed and stamina. However, when I've looked through results of the past and watched videos back, I've always noticed it's tend to be those horses that are got a lot of race experience and battle hardened that tend to come out on top here. So maybe looking at it incorrectly historically, but anyway, this renewal here, I'm quite a big fan of a horse that's a relatively big price here, 9 or 10 to 1, Wingman, for Gordon Elliott and Jack Kennedy. Wingman's got some nice form. The horse has won a couple races and also been placed several times. It went to Cheltenham earlier in the season, around December time, and it ran a little bit disappointing. It was second, but I was a little bit disappointed. But since then, it's been placed behind the Yellow Clay at Naas, and then more recently, a month or so ago, it was second to Final Demand. And both of those were obviously placed in Wednesday's Turner's Novices Hurdle. So I think obviously on paper, I think Wingman has got the strongest form in the book going into the Albert Bartlett, and for that reason he would be my number one selection. Another horse that I like is the Big Westerner, trained by Henry de Bromhead. He's unbeaten to date, and he's won this season at both Punchestown and Limerick, and he's a horse that's got a bright future, and he looks a proper stayer to me, and I think he also goes into this race with a massive chance. The Willie Mullins trained Jasmine DeVoe. He won last year's bumper, but he's been a little bit disappointing since. He did win early season, but since then he's looked a little bit sketchy. His jumping's been off, and he's just not looked straightforward to me, and he's a horse that I'd probably oppose in this race. He's got a lot of natural ability, but it's just not been putting it together. Another horse in the race that you couldn't really dismiss, Ballybow. He's won his last couple of starts. He runs for Jigginsdown, also trained by Gordon Elliott. And he's most recently won at Clonmel, and he's also won at Naas right at the beginning of the year. So that horse might be improving with racing. And as mentioned, those type of horses are the ones that seem to go quite well in Albert Bartlett. But yeah, we're going to have a big field here. There's quite a few horses that you can look at, and you couldn't necessarily dismiss them either, even some of them a bit further down the market. But for me, I think around the 9 to 1 mark, I would go with Wingman. He's got some solid form behind some really top Grade 1 horses, and for that reason, he's my main selection for the race. And I'd also take interest in the Big Westerner. So yeah, for me, that's the Albert Bartlett covered. So thank you.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress there for his preview of the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, the last Grade 1 Novice Hurdle of the week. Always an interesting race for future out-and-out stayers, this race. Over 3 miles, I think the trip, it always takes some getting. It can bottom some horses out. You know, some horses running this race give it the all, and it's arguably the best race that they've ever run in their lives, and they find it hard to bounce back from that race. So it's always a race worth watching, I think, the Albert Bartlett, maybe mainly for future chasers, I would say. Where do I stand on the race? I was hoping that Final Demand would take this race out. I always knew I had on the Patreon channel Copec de Borders and the New Lion for the 2 mile and the 2.5 mile race. I was hoping that Final Demand would be there to complete the hat trick in this race. But unfortunately for the horse, they chose to run Final Demand, maybe test the horse more in the 2 mile 5 furlong race, and he finished third, a very creditable third. A nice horse, Final Demand. I wouldn't be writing him off yet. So as a consequence, I've sort of had to go to Plan B and sort of play the cards how they had been dealt on the day in the race. And I must say I'm very happy with the way the cards have been dealt in the race. Steve touched on one of the horses I'd identified. Actually, half sister to a horse that's won the race 2 years ago, the Big Westerner, trained by Henry de Bromhead. Put in a good performance first time out, it did. That was when I noticed the horse, because it beat one of mine, Argento Boy, in first time out. And then he came out and won, and then she came out, and won her first graded race next time out. And since then, she hasn't ran. And I think it could be argued that connections have saved her and prepared her so the best they can for this race. So she is spot on for it. She certainly hasn't been over-raced this season. She's only raced twice. And she is a half-sister to Stay Away Faye, out of the same dam as Stay Away Faye, who won the race for Paul Nicholls and myself 2 years ago. I think it was now. And Stay Away Faye would be one of the classic examples of what I'm saying. The horse, Stay Away Faye, I don't think has ever ran as good a race ever again as he did in the Albert Bartlett. So I hope the same fate doesn't befall his little sister in this race. Very nice horse. There's other black type horses on there. Again, I'm not going to go on too much about the pedigree because the horse, rather like the one in the first, has been on Patreon for so long that if you're not going to watch it now, when are you going to watch it? If you haven't watched it already, I can't force you to watch it. I can't force you to learn. People need to be willing themselves. But I'm certainly not going to waste my time repeating myself on a broadcast when the information, the same information, is freely available elsewhere. There's only a certain amount of time in the day. If you're interested in any of my jump sources, there's still some on the YouTube channel from 2 or 3 years ago. But the ones I identified this year, they have moved on to Patreon. So head over there to check them out if my jump sources interest you. The Big Westerner, she obviously looks to have an obvious chance, I think. I think, like Steve says, an out-of-out stayer, and I do think that she will stay the trip. It's just whether she gets looking running or she's good enough, really. The second one I've got in the race that has just turned up is we've just talked about the horse, Argento Boy. This is actually a horse I do like for chasing future. It's related to a couple of my old favourites from Andrea and Graham Wiley and the Howard Johnson days. Briar Hill, who won the bumper at the Cheltenham Festival in his year, and Boston Bob, who I think even managed to win a race at the Cheltenham Festival. He's probably trained by Willie Mullins then, but I think he is also a Cheltenham Festival winner. Like I said, I was hoping that Argento Boy would win first time out. I actually identified Argento Boy in bumpers when I saw the pedigree of it. He was quite highly tried in bumpers last year. He ran at both the Cheltenham bumper and he ran a lot better at Punchestown in the Punchestown bumper, where I think he finished 5th or 6th. Like I said, he was beaten first time out. He was then pulled up on his second hurdle start, but managed to get off the mark with a nice victory on his third start. But to me, the faster they go here, the better it will suit Argento Boy. Because to me, I think the horse will probably end up a 4-miler or something. There's times in races where I watch him go round, and I think, is there a race long enough for this horse to be seen at its best? I remember when Howard Johnson bought Boston Bob, and he said, I bought this horse to deliver Mr. Wiley a Grand National. Sadly, it never happened. Mr. Wiley, Howard Johnson was not allowed to train horses anymore, and Mr. Wiley moved all his horses to Willie Mullins and Paul Nicholls. But to me, this would be a similar horse. The further he goes, the better. I mean, I'm hoping he might do a bit of a Lecky Watson. He was found a bit wanting over hurdles, but he improved. He improved pounds over fences, and I think this one could be a candidate for this Argento Boy. But I'm not sure about the ground either. He might be a bit of a horse that prefers a bit of cutting the ground as well. He does look a heavy horse. Do you know what I mean? And but yeah, travels okay, but it just looks as though the horse is a dour, out and out stayer, which could be exactly the sort of horse that people want for this race. So yeah, I will be focusing on those two in the race, Argento Boy and the Big Westerner. I'll quickly now touch on the feature race of the day at 4 o'clock, the Cheltenham Gold Cup, where Galopin de Champs is bidding for his third Gold Cup victory. I've actually got no interest in the race at all. Like I said yesterday, really, I'm not really in to these open races. That they are pretty exposed, these horses now. And Galopin de Champs, as a very short price odds-on favourite, has really took the lustre out of the race for me. Hopefully the horse goes round nicely and will complete a little bit of history, the first horse to win 3 Gold Cups since the legendary Henrietta trained best mate. Henrietta Knight, trained best mate. But I know Steve always enjoys the feature race of the week, the Gold Cup. And it wouldn't be Reprieve Media CIC double handful without the preview of the blue ribbon race of the week, the Cheltenham Gold Cup by Steve Allpress. So here it is now. Steve, over to you.
Right, on to the feature event of the Cheltenham Festival. The Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup Chase, a Grade 1 over 3¼ miles. And we have to start with the reigning, the dual champion, Galopin de Champs, who will be looking to win the race for a third time, the first horse since Best Mate to win the Gold Cup for a third time. And he's going into the race in terrific form. He won the Martin Pipe Handicap Hurdle as a novice. He then went to the Turner's Novices Chase, where he had a dramatic fall, which left Bob Ollinger, Henry de Bromhead, to pick up the pieces. But since then, he's been stepped up in trip and he's won the last 2 Gold Cups. And on top of that, he's been to Punchestown and won. He's been to Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival and he's won. He's looked so impressive. The horse these days is more relaxed than he used to be. He jumps beautifully. There's nothing not to like about Galopin de Champs. He tends to need his first run of the season, but after that, he really does seem to hit another level. And just looking at the opposition here, I think it's just a case of if Galopin de Champs brings his A game and maybe even his B game, he will win the race. Obviously, it's easier said than done. He's still got to turn up and run, but hopefully he puts his best foot forward and he can get the job done. But yeah, it'll be a tremendous achievement if he can go back and win his third Gold Cup. He's a 9-year-old now, so there might even be a chance that he'll be back next year. But he's been such a good horse for connections, and I think most racing fans will be rooting him on to get this third title. I didn't really think I'd see another 3-time Gold Cup winner since Best Mate, but it just shows that anything can happen, and it's lovely to see another horse have the opportunity to do so. Willie Mullins, he's trained Gold Cup winners in the past, and I'm sure that he's going to have this horse in tip-top shape, and hopefully he gets a nice clear passage, average luck in running, and he can get the job done. So yeah, Galopin de Champs is my selection for the race. Just having a look at a couple of others in the race. We're pretty familiar with the rest of the field. We've seen Monty's Star run well round Cheltenham before. Corbett's Cross went and won the National Hunt Chase last season. We've seen Hoy Senior win the Brown Advisory in the past. The Real Whackers had some form round Cheltenham. Royal Pagaille is a specialist round Haydock. So all these horses in here. We've had Banbridge, the King George winner. All these horses we're familiar with. So I think anything, there's nothing that we don't know about these horses. So I think it does all come down to how Galopin de Champs is on the day. But yeah, if he turns up, he's going to win. Banbridge is the one that you probably keep an eye on a little bit, because he is a horse that's stepping up in trip. He'll be stepping up to the 3¼ mile trip for the first time. He obviously won at the King George trip, the 3 mile trip, for the first time on Boxing Day. and he seemed to see it out pretty well. But I do think stepping up an extra 2.5 furlongs on this undulating track is a bit more demanding than running around Kempton, although the Kempton run was a lovely run. So yeah, that he'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Corbett's Cross, he's looked a bit sketchy with his jumping, but he was running over a more intermediate trip last time. I think stepping up to this trip would suit Corbett's Cross. He would be the one for me to probably bet without Galloping Deschamps. But yeah, all in all, if Galloping Deschamps turns up and it's the horse that we've been seeing, for the last few years, he'll get the job done. So yeah, he is my selection for the Cheltenham Gold Cup, Galloping Deschamps.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress for his preview there of the Blue Ribbon race of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival, the Gold Cup. And it's pretty difficult for me not to really agree with everything that Steve said in that preview. I think as sometimes does happen with Mr. Allpress, he summed that race up perfectly. And I like him. I hope that Galloping Deschamps can do the business on the day and land back-to-back Gold Cups. Obviously, the next race, the Fox Hunters Challenge Chase, Steve and myself have got nothing in that. Steve will be back a bit later for his selections, his each way selection and his win selection for the final day of the Cheltenham Festival. But I will firstly touch on any other business and then give my selections. I think basically the 520, the Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys handicap hurdle. I've not been able to avoid the handicaps very well at all today. I've actually got two in the race. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them both because neither of them have got videos. Dan, I was hoping they could get on the video, could get on the Patreon channel as novice hurdlers, but the novice hurdle campaign has just fallen a little bit short. So these are hopefully first time out winning novice chasers for next season, I think. The first one we're going to take a look at is the Enabler. The Enabler is a listed bumper winner from December 2023, where he beat Fleur in the Park by 4 lengths before being put in his place when 5th out of 10 behind Jeroboam Machan in the Grade 2 at Leopardstown in February 2024. His hurdle campaign has been what it is, really. His first 2 starts, he managed to get beat at 1-9 on his first start and then was pulled up at 10-11 on his second start. He then was second behind last year's bumper winner, he was in the Albert Bartlett earlier. Jasmine DeVoe beat the horse by 4.5 lengths on his third start, and then the horse managed to get his head in front, beating I Am Lorenzo by a short head, running to a mark of 128. He was then thrust into a listed handicap at Leopardstown in February, where the horse could only finish 10th out of 18, beaten 23 lengths by McClory, who I think might either oppose here or is in the county hurdle earlier in the card. I definitely saw it when I was going through the card. This is one of them ones that I do like to follow from the family of Denman. The dam Nanny Stone is out of Denwoman, who herself is a sister to Denman. But yeah, like I said, you have to say that the form of the Enabler has fallen short. And he is what he is over hurdles, which is a handicap hurdler, which is why he's in this race. I'm just hoping that next season the fences could bring out a bit of improvement in the horse. A bit like Regent Stroll, who was also from the same family of Denman and has been bang average over novice hurdles this year to the extent that he couldn't even manage to turn up at the Cheltenham Festival for the £600,000 purchase. Quite closely related to this horse, the Enabler. The second one I've got on my list is Minella Sixo. Minella Sixo, trained by Gordon Elliott, arguably is a better bred horse with better form than the Enabler over hurdles. Anyway, one first time out, beating Banana 3 by 8 lengths, and then was second behind, I think, a horse that was 5th in yesterday's Turners, Potter's Charm, the Swiston Davis horse. It then beat Mr. Pink in the novice hurdle at Thurles before being second behind Praytale in a Group 3 and third in a Group 2, where he's actually beaten by the big Westerner who runs in the Albert Bartlett earlier. So this is a Group 3 and Group 2 placed novice hurdler running in the low to mid 130s, whereas the Enabler was in the high 120s. And there's not much between them up the weights. I do think Manila 6-0 is his first preference for this festival might have been the Pertemps. He ran in a Pertemps qualifier last time out in February and suddenly fell when just starting to get into the race. So he wasn't obviously qualified for the Pertemps after that. That was his first run at a handicap company. So to me, I think I've got two interesting contenders in this race, the Enabler and Manila 6-0, because they kind of fit the profile, don't they, of improving chasers. And that's sort of a horse that takes this race out. I remember Don Poley winning this race, for instance. And the pedigree of Manila 6-0 is absolutely superb. The Damn Glorious 12th, she's actually bred two pattern race horses already. One of them, Breaking Castle, was won 2 out of 3 races, trained by Ben Brookhouse. And that's one on my possibles list that just hasn't run all season in any novice hurdles. It's run in 3 bumpers and won 2 of them. So I've still got horses that are still unexposed, and this is still even Cheltenham. Gloria Breaking Castle would definitely be one of them. The second dam of the horse, Bilboa, was so good it beat a horse called Azerta Uiop. People might remember Azerta Uiop going round for Paul Nicholls. Well, this horse beat Azerta Uiop by 21 lengths in the 2001 Aintree 4-year-old hurdle. So this is a horse of the top class. The second dam of this horse. It beat Janus de Cochet as well. 5th behind the leading Landing Light in the 2001 Eurobet Championship Hurdle at Sandown. I think that race in April. Not sure necessarily sure that race exists anymore. Actually, it doesn't seem to. Can't think of a race similar to it at the Sandown meeting, end of the season. But yeah, the form of it is there. And also, I've got to remember. People need to remember that Bilboa is related to the Dam of Impervious. Is also out of Bilboa. Blodge, who was the Dam of Impervious, trained by W.J. Burke. Impervious won the Mare's Chase at the Cheltenham Festival not so long ago, and is also by Shantu, as is this one, and Breaking Castle. I think Breaking Castle is definitely a Shantu. Yes, he is. And there's some interesting horses on this line, and I do think that it's a decent horse. Also like Makuji, the old Nicky Henderson horse, that was rated over 150 as well. And it's also related to the stallion Mansonien, who was no back number, was a stallion of National Hunt horses. Very good horse. One of the rare American dam line horses I'm following. I think this dam line is A1 that I got with it on Impervious. And after the exploits of Impervious, I followed a few, it's fair to say. But yeah, so my 2 in the 520, the last race of the meeting, will be the Enabler and Manila 6-0, probably both each way. I'll now give my selections for the day, and I will then hand over to Steve. It's a tricky day for me today because I do fancy a few. I've got the Big Westerner and Argento Boy in the same race, so that's tricky, rather like the New Lion and Final Demand yesterday for selections, because I know I'll tip one and the other one will win. So my 2 selections on the day will both probably have to be win selections due to I've seen the prices of them. People might be able to get on them both each way at around 6-1, but that'd be the minimum price I would be looking for each way. But rather like Coldwell Potter today, who drifted nicely and still got the job done at a fair price. You might have to back these to win, and just if you get placed, then be slightly disappointed like me. In the first one will be in the 120 at Cheltenham, Hello Neighbour, and the second one will be in the 240 at Cheltenham, the Mare's Chase, Allegory de Vassi. Allegory de Vassi, if there's eight runners in that race, which there's 9 at the minute, I think she'll do very well not to be in the first 3. I think, in that race, she's normally quite a solid mare these days. So, yeah, the Hello Neighbour in the 120 and Allegory de Vassi in the 240. All the other horses I've mentioned, like I will be backing them each way in the Darby, Argento Boy, Manila 6-0, the Enabler. But like I said, it's an interesting day for me tomorrow. I think I've got some interesting horses moving forward, which on the last day of the Cheltenham Festival seems a strange thing to say, but it's the case. Right, I'm going to end my coverage there now. I'll be back to wrap up proceedings at the end of the show. But before I do that, it's time for some selections from Steve Allpress. Steve, I just want to thank you again for finding the time to do what you do and have done for myself and my organisation over the years. I'll never forget it. as hopefully, as long as my brain functions properly and I don't get any dementia or anything like that. I hope never to forget it. Anyway, you can never take anything for granted. And I've seen too many episodes of Casualty to say that when someone says they'll never forget something, the chances are that is what they will do. So, touch wood, I hope I'll never forget it. So, Steve, we're over to your final batch of selections for the week. Day 4 of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. And, Steve, here are your selections. Over to you.
Right, so on to my win and each way selections for the final day of the festival. My win selection is going to be in the first race, the Triumph Hurdle, Le Lumba, Nicky Henson, Nico de Boinville. I've been a big fan of this horse since I first saw him at Ascot on his seasonal debut. I remember I was sat on my sofa at home. I was hopeful he would show me what he did. And I must admit, when I saw him come around the top bend, my mind was already made up that he was the one for the Triumph Hurdle. I was very taken by what he did that day. And for that reason, he is my selection for the day for the Triumph Hurdle. I'm very confident in this horse, and I think he's going to be a horse to watch for next year's Arkle once he goes over fences. So yeah, he's my win selection, Le Lumba. My each way selection, and I'm going to pick this in the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, and I'm going to go for Wingman based on his current price of 9 or 10 to 1. I think he's got some lovely form in the book, as I've mentioned, and I'd be very surprised if he was out the frame, but I do also feel that he's got a big solid chance of winning the race too. So Wingman is my each way selection for the final day of the festival. So then, I just want to wrap up and say thank you very much for having me throughout the week. It's been an exciting, eventful, tiring week, but as always, it's been such a pleasure. There's nothing better than you look forward to the festival all year, and it's tremendous to go there and see these champions and these top quality horses running. And I look forward to coming back again next year, both to do the preview and both to watch some of these horses run. Some of these novices go into open company and race in the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase, whatsoever. It's something certainly to look forward to. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you, Paul. Goodbye.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve, for taking the time to give your selections for the 4th and final day of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. They're very much appreciated. I'll recap them right at the end of the broadcast. But before that, I think I will run through mine again quickly, in case people have just tuned in and missed them. 120 at Cheltenham. Hello Neighbour. Each way above 13 to 2, 6 to 1. Any other prize, back it to win. And the 240 at Cheltenham, Allegory Devassi, the exact same situation. Right, we've done it. Another Cheltenham Festival in the Reprieve Media CIC Double Handful Archives. And what a week it has been. I think it's been a fantastic week, really. It's been a week full of drama and theatre, and a week full of the best horses identified by me winning the right races. So, in all, apart from not having many runners in the races like the Arkle, races like that, and I'd like to have seen a Gaelic Warrior go round. I think we've just about got away with it. So, before we end the stream now, I think I can recap Steve's selections off the top of my head if I remember them. In the 120, the Triumph Hurdle, we're both in the same race again. Steve, very strong on the Nicky Henderson trained Lulamba in that race. And Steve's each way selection is in the Albert Bartlett at 320, where he fancies Wingmen each way in that race. I remember Wingmen, it beat one of mine, Samir, in a bumper the other year by about 50 lengths. So yeah, it has ran quite well. I've noticed it did run grade 1. It was also never really looked at, to be fair. But yeah, so there's Steve's selections. Lulamba in the Triumph, Wingmen in the Albert Bartlett. I'll just recap mine quickly again, because I know people are tuning in and out in the usual ephemeral way that radio is used. 120 at Cheltenham, Hello Neighbour, and 240 at Cheltenham, Allegri Devassi. If you can get 13 to 2 and bigger, back them each way. And if you can't, back them to win. I'm not a fan of each way betting to get your money back. Pointless. Might as well just watch the race if you're going to finish second and third and not get nothing for it. So to me, that would be the situation for me. Right. I think we can now end this stream here. May I just give a massive thanks to Steve Allpress again for his fantastic work in the week, especially on day 3 when he was so busy he had to do all his audio in a car. I don't think we've had that before. He's loves to attend Cheltenham, as he just said, in his selections, but he still manages to find time for a little old Reprieve Media CIC, and we'll also always be grateful for that. But I think we're done now for this year. It's been another great year. It's always get a bit emotional at this time because it's a long week and it takes a lot out of you. It really does if you care. And we certainly care, Steve Allpress and myself. So all being well again, touch wood, like Steve said, in his selection segment, we hope to be back next year. Where I don't know what's going to happen next year. What could happen next year? The new Lion will serve it up in the champion hurdle maybe, and Final Demand bids for RSA Glory maybe. There's some nice horses that have won this week. Copec de Bordes maybe in an Arkle tilt. Who knows? But for now, take care, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Try and swerve the Midlands National on Saturday if you can. I know I will be trying to, as I do every year. But for now, I'll say goodbye. And Steve Allpress has said goodbye already in his previous segment. So that's it. Absolute pleasure to have you on board this year. Take care, everybody. And we will see you soon. Thank you. And on behalf of Reprieve Media CIC, I've been Paul Newman. Steve Allpress has been himself. And that's your lot, folks.